Imagine waking up on a quiet Saturday morning expecting birds, fresh air, and peace. But instead hearing loud music, car doors slamming, people laughing, and not recognizing a single voice. That's exactly what happened to us. When my son Daniel looked out his farmhouse window that morning, his face went pale. Cars. Everywhere. Not one or two. Not even 10. Dozens. Parked across his field. Lined along the dirt driveway. Blocking the barn. Even halfway inside his front yard. And hanging across his porch. A giant banner that read, Green Valley HOA Annual Harvest Festival, hosted at the Miller Farmhouse. Hosted. We never agreed to host anything. No one called. No one emailed. No one knocked on the door. They just decided. And that decision. It cost them more than they ever imagined. Daniel bought that farmhouse 2 years earlier. He was 26 at the time. No shortcuts. No help. Just savings from years of overtime and side jobs. He wanted space. He wanted privacy. He wanted freedom. That's why he bought land just outside the Green Valley HOA boundary. He made sure of it before signing anything. Green Valley HOA had a reputation. Strict rules. Overbearing board members. Letters for the smallest things. One homeowner got fined because their Christmas lights were too warm-toned. Another was warned for having a garden gnome that didn't match community aesthetics. Daniel didn't want that life. So he chose land outside their control. Or at least, he thought he did. It started small. A letter arrived 6 months after he moved in. It welcomed him to the greater Green Valley community and reminded him that cooperation with the HOA enhances neighborhood value. He ignored it. He wasn't in the HOA. Another letter came later suggesting he maintain fence symmetry consistent with surrounding properties. Again, not in the HOA. Then one day a woman in her mid-50s showed up at the property. Perfect hair. Perfect posture. Clipboard in hand. She introduced herself as Linda, HOA board president. She smiled politely and said, "Even though you're technically outside our official map, your property directly impacts our community image." Daniel replied calmly, "I understand. But I'm not part of the HOA." Her smile didn't move. It's in everyone's best interest to cooperate. He thanked her and went back to fixing his barn roof. We thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Over the next year, subtle pressure continued. Emails about shared infrastructure concerns. Suggestions that his driveway caused traffic inconvenience. Complaints about his chickens being audibly disruptive. The thing is, his property was legally separate. Different deed. Different zoning. The HOA had no authority. But they kept pushing. And Daniel kept ignoring them. Until that Saturday morning. The Harvest Festival was the HOA's biggest event of the year. Food trucks. Live music. Bounce houses. Raffles. Normally it was held at the subdivision park. But that year, construction renovations were happening. So the board needed a new venue. And apparently, they decided Daniel's farmhouse was perfect. Open land. Rustic vibe. Plenty of parking. There was just one tiny problem. It wasn't theirs. When Daniel stepped outside, people were already setting up tables on his porch. Someone plugged a speaker into an exterior outlet. Children were running through his vegetable beds. A catering truck had parked near the barn. He walked up to a man unloading decorations and asked, "What is this?" The man looked confused. "You're the owner, right?" The HOA rented this space. Rented? Rented from who? That's when Daniel saw Linda again. Standing confidently near a welcome table. Greeting guests. She saw him. Smiled. Walked over like nothing was wrong. "Oh, Daniel. Good morning. We're so grateful for your cooperation." He stared at her. "I never agreed to this." Her tone shifted slightly. Well, technically the land classification allows community events under shared interest agreements. There was no such agreement. She continued. We assumed you wouldn't mind. It benefits everyone. Assumed. That word would cost them dearly. Daniel did not yell. He did not cause a scene. He simply said, "You need to leave." Linda laughed lightly. "We've already invested thousands into this event. You wouldn't want to disappoint the community." There it was. Social pressure. Public guilt. Manipulation. She believed he wouldn't dare shut it down in front of hundreds of people. She underestimated him. Instead of arguing, Daniel walked back inside. He grabbed his folder. Inside were copies of his deed, boundary maps, zoning confirmations, and something else. Security system access. See, Daniel installed full perimeter cameras when he moved in. Every entrance recorded. Every angle covered. He stepped back outside and calmly announced, "This is private property. You are trespassing. You have 30 minutes to remove everything." Some people started whispering. Linda's face tightened. "You're overreacting," she said. He responded, "No. You're trespassing." Then he made one phone call. To the county sheriff. When law enforcement arrived, the mood changed instantly. Officers asked one simple question. Who authorized this event? Linda stepped forward confidently and claimed there was a verbal understanding. Daniel handed the deputy the deed and property boundary documentation. The deputy looked at Linda and said, "Ma'am, this property is not part of your HOA." Silence. Then murmurs. Then panic. Because vendors were there. Paid vendors. Tickets had been sold. Donations collected. And now the entire event was illegally occupying private land. But here's where it gets worse for them. Daniel's cameras recorded everything from the moment the first truck entered the driveway at 6:12 a.m. No request. No consent. Just entry. That's trespassing. The deputy instructed the event to shut down immediately. Guests began packing up. Bounce houses deflated. Food trucks left. Children cried. Parents complained, not at Daniel. At the HOA. Linda tried damage control, saying it was a miscommunication. But the sheriff made it clear. This is unauthorized use of private property. And that statement changed everything. What the HOA didn't know. Daniel had already consulted a property attorney months earlier because of their repeated harassment. He had documentation of every letter. Every email. Every visit. This event wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. And legally. That mattered. Within a week, Daniel filed a formal complaint. Trespassing. Unauthorized commercial use of property. Property damage, because yes, his crops were destroyed. Fence posts broken from parking overflow. The vendors? They demanded refunds from the HOA. Residents? They were furious their ticket money was wasted. Insurance? Denied the HOA claim once they discovered the venue wasn't legally secured. And the board? They panicked. Because lawsuits are expensive. And personal liability is real. During mediation, the truth came out. Linda had told the board she had implicit approval. There was no approval. She never asked. She assumed intimidation would work like it had with others. But Daniel wasn't inside their system. They had no power over him. And now, they were exposed. The settlement required full payment for property damages. Legal fees covered. Public written apology. And a formal cease and desist preventing any future contact regarding compliance. But the biggest consequence? Linda resigned 3 months later. Residents voted in a new board. Transparency policies were added. Event contracts required signed venue agreements. The community learned something that year. Authority without permission is just overreach. As for Daniel, he rebuilt his vegetable beds. Installed a locked gate at the driveway entrance. and put up a simple wooden sign. Private property. No assumptions. The farmhouse became more than land that day. It became a statement. Because sometimes the biggest mistake someone can make is believing you won't stand up for yourself. They thought they could use his dream for convenience. They thought social pressure would silence him. They thought wrong. And that harvest festival. It was the last time Green Valley HOA ever crossed that fence. If you've ever dealt with overreach, control, or someone assuming they own what's yours, you already understand. Respect isn't automatic. It's enforced. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should never underestimate.